In this video, I'm going to attempt to install new license plate lights. There's two of them on the back license plate area. The previous owner of this car came from Germany, but was a previous US model. And what I'm going to do is take out all the parts. I bought two lamps, the gaskets, the housing, screws and clips. I'll go down in the garage and show you what I'm looking at and dealing with. Not too sure if the electrical wire that's there is for a video camera or for the lights itself, but I do see some wires in there bundled up in the back of the car. But in the meantime, I'm going to take all these parts out in your traditional Lamborghini tape that they have. It's pretty cool when you get a box from them because then it's like Christmas time. Anyhow, let's start to take everything out. So these are all the parts that I got. Basically, in my previous video, I had gotten these screws from a local Home Depot store. These do look a little bit different on the front side. I'm going to visually compare them and see if they're the same as what I installed on the door latch. I'm 100% sure they're identical. But anyways, this is from a previous order that I won't be using, but I'm going to keep them anyways. If they are different, I will install these and remove the ones I had put in. And then over here, there's a pair of air filters, and I also did a previous video on the air filters. I'm going to open up this and see what the material is like, if they were like the UFI filters I had put in. But this is nice that I have this set here because I'm going to be opening up my Murcielago and checking the air filters in there, and if these fit there, then I'll just throw in a new pair on that. But besides that, we have these parts here, and I'll go through them real quick. This is the actual lamp lights. There's two of them in there. I'm not too sure if these are standard. I'll probably go into the automotive store and see exactly what kind of lights these are, and if there is a similar version, because these are like $9 each. Not expensive, but I mean, if you could get them locally, why wait a week or two for the parts to arrive? So you can see that's the part number for the rear tail lights on the Diablo Roadster. And then if we look over here, these are the 4 screws. They 2 for each lamp that we'll be installing. And these are the clips that the screws will eventually go into. They call these springs, but these are basically your typical clips, so you can see them. They keep the screw from backing out and gives the screws something to hold on to, especially going in through panels of the car. And that is the part number there. Then we have a pair of these. These are the license plate lamps. So I'll open this up, but you see there's 2 of them in there, and basically it's I believe these are the interior housing where the bulbs would go into, and where you would actually wire up the electrical into, and that's what this part number is. And then we also have the this is the number plate light. So this is the external part of the lights that you'll be visually being able to see. And there's a little gasket that goes around, and inside there should be the plastic parts here. I'll open up these and we'll inspect at least these 2 right here and see what we're dealing with. It might help us figure out how to install them. Should be easy enough. Well, these are the 2 tail lights I'll be installing for the license plate. When I ordered, I thought it was kind of pricey a bit for these parts. Let me pull up my receipt here. These license plate lamps, even though I ordered 2 license plate lamps and 2 number plate lights, I ended up getting 4 sets. You got 2 sets there and 2 sets here, so I'm not too sure what's going on there. maybe the quantity of one means you get both left and right of these units. I'm not too sure, but the Bull Stuff website that I ordered from must have either sent me an extra pair or sent me 4 pairs and charged me for that amount. So basically, just to let you guys know how these go, you got your housing on your back side, and the bulb goes in there, and then you got your front side that this part goes on the outside of the car. This thing will go inside the opening, and then this thing will go in. You put your clips right in there on the back side, so that way when you screw this thing in, it grabs on and makes a tight closing. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing some prep work, seeing what wires there are. If you look at the back, you can see there's connections for the positive ground. I imagine that's what those are for. And then those will probably have to be either soldered on or get some kind of electrical clip, and snap those in on there. If there is any electrical work to be done, I'll videotape that and show you guys. But otherwise, these are all the parts. It seems fairly straightforward, and I'll go at it. Okay, what I'm going to do is, you can see underneath here we have our light up there that we'll be inserting, and over here there's going to be an insertion of the light assembly, the lamp assembly. I'm going to clean up all of this. In Europe, they have really thin but very wide license plates, and so for them to affix the license plate, I think they put in some of these drill holes. I'm not too sure exactly what it is, but I'm going to clean up all of that. I'm going to give that Gugon product one last chance at doing something, because I'm really disappointed in the product. But hopefully, that looks like dirt and stuff like that, so hopefully it can come out. Other than that, maybe when I take it in to get ceramic coated and get what is that, paint corrected. Paint correction is basically they clean the car, and then they clay bar it to pick up impurities, then they polish it, etc., and then they apply a ceramic coating which hardens up and gives it a really nice shine, and it keeps grime and all that, and it makes washing your car a lot easier. So in order to get up into these little recesses for the lights, because I'm going to have to run wire, I don't think this is the correct wire that is supposed to hook up to the lights. Maybe it is. I'm going to put a voltmeter and figure it out, but either way, I'm going to have to connect in to both of these, the voltage or the electrical lines to them. In order to get access behind there, I was thinking this grill has to come off, but before I even get to that point, what I want to do is see if I can remove this big lid here, which I think everything I've seen online, it just requires 2 bolts. So there's going to be 1 bolt here right in the corner and 1 bolt there in the corner. I've already taken them off, and basically, let me show you what I've got here. You can see this one is a washer nut that goes through, but they also have a little plastic washer, or I would call it almost a, what do you call it, a gasket type thing underneath. It's a hard plastic, and they have it so that this goes on the top, and I imagine it keeps it from vibrating. Then on the bottom side of it, once it goes through, this thing was on the underside of it. Ironically, the other one that I took out only had 1 of these, so I might just 3D print out 1 of these little plastic grommets that go underneath. And I'm sure it's so that when you tighten down, it kind of crushes in a bit, but with the heat and all that, it'll make it even better because it's a little bit of plastic, and maybe it malforms to the metal a bit, and and the vibration, especially in that area of the car, will be a lot less. I mean, it'll be nasty, but with the plastic grommets in there, I think it'll prevent it from shaking loose. But once again, why don't they just use, blue thread lock? Anyhow, what I'm going to do is, right here, I think since it's all loose, I should be able to just lift up on it. Yep. and it should just come out. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to need 2 hands. So I'll take it off right now. I've got this the rear deck lid sitting up, propped up against these boxes, and I'll show you what keeps it in up against the inside. They got these 2 hooks, so literally this is closest, or this is closest where my thumb is. These hooks are closest to the bumper, and this is more towards the front of the vehicle. So you can see this is where that 1 screw or bolt was. There's another one down at the far corner. That's the only thing holding this entire deck lid on. So imagine this corner and the other corner being done. If you lift up on it, it's not going to lift straight up. You got to pull it towards you, so that way it gets by these little hooks there. And I'm going to end up cleaning all of this too. It's interesting. This car originally had a carbon fiber wing, and there's little plugs in where the wing goes into. I am trying to find a carbon fiber wing. I'm actually considering making one. It would be out of blue threaded material. So it would be a blue fiber I think it's carbon fiber weave or something like that. Something like what they say. But I'm going to give this a really good cleaning before I put it in there and stuff like that. Anyone out there with a carbon fiber wing for a 99 Diablo, let me know. Those from the factory are running about $9,000, or close to $10,000. So that's insane. And then you could probably, the cheapest I've seen is about $7,200. So I'm experimenting right now as a do-it-yourselfer. Do up a 3D print of the wing initially and create molds of it and see if I could have fun doing that. It'll probably be a disaster, but hey, if I spend $300-400 and it's a disaster, I'll have fun doing that as opposed to spending $10,000. So, okay. So I was able to remove this rear deck lid, which exposes this, I don't know, I think that's a sound box of some type of big ass muffler. Supposedly it weighs, I think, like 80 pounds or something like that. But you can see how big this sucker is. Anyhow, to get at the taillight lamps, I kind of looked down in there and I just don't see an easy way to get down in there. So I think this black grill, what I originally wanted to remove, needs to come out. I'm looking at what's holding it in. It looks like there's 3 bolts, or there's supposed to be 3 bolts. There's supposed to be one here, and one over here. This one's missing, and that one's missing. The center one is in place. It's nice and snug. I'm guessing that those 2 other bolts were missing because the previous owner actually used straight pipes on the vehicle, and you could see them down there at the very far corner, leaning up against the side of the wall there. And so if someone went in here and removed all of this stuff, lighten up the car, and then make it sound like hell on wheels. And a lot of people are telling me to throw the straight pipes on, so it's going to probably be something I do. Maybe not this first driving season because, well, I just want to kind of enjoy it in its how would you say, the truest form, the way it came out of the factory and that stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna clean up a little bit of it. You can see there looks like a little bit of water staining, that kind of stuff. But what's interesting is behind this grill is a little mesh grill. And man, that's the cheapest grill I've ever seen. And I looked online, they sell it. It's right here. But if you look at it, it's just janky as hell. It's like an afterthought. They said, hey, let's throw this mesh behind it. And oh yeah, that's good enough. They just tossed it in behind it, and it looked like it was epoxied or attempted to be epoxied here. I have no clue what's going on here. So, but now that I've got this accessible, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this screw here and see if this thing does come out. If it does, yay, I can get to what I really want to work on. And then when I put everything together, I'm going to go to the hardware store and pick up 2 more screws and tighten it down the way it should be. Okay. Okay, figured out how to get remove that grill. There's going to be three screws. There's going to be one there, one here, one here. But there's going to be another one inside there and over here on the inside corner. So let me just show you where it is. If you look all the way in, there it is. So that screw face, it's going upwards. I don't even know if that's the legitimate screw that was supposed to be in there, but it is there. And then if I look over on this side, it's right there. So I believe if I take those out, and you'll probably have to have like a real small tool to get in underneath and then slowly wrench it out the other way. That's going to be a little bit of a pain, I can see, but at least I know how it comes out. The one thing I'm looking at is if I was to reach under here where this recess is, I put my fingers up in there where this lamp light comes in, and I don't feel anything, no cables, no nothing. And what I'm thinking is this wire is the only wire set that comes back here. So what I might do is I might undo everything in here, and then see if the electrical turns on. Like for instance, if I put my night lights on or my headlights, does it feed voltages to this? Because if it does, then I can just undo all this stuff, snake it over to this other side on the left side. I could splice it, etc., and then I'll be able to run my electrical and soldering clips and that kind of stuff, and then button everything up. So I think that's what I'm going to do is, first of all, determine what I'm dealing with. And the reason why is, keep in mind, that hole here where my finger is, if I go straight up and I look down in there, in this little hole there, and then see if I can get some good light in there. Yeah, there is literally no opening where that recess is. It's on the, it's on that recess. There's like a piece, a sheathing that covers from this all the way in. And when I look down in there, you have no access to those lamp lights. So I'm thinking this grill, even if I did get it out, it still might not let me have access to that. But oh well, you only get to wrench on these a few times in your life. So I'm gonna flip a coin and determine whether or not I'm gonna pull out that grill or just work the electrical without taking everything apart. But okay. Just to give you guys an update of what I've done here. So I stripped the end of this ground wire, fed it into the connector, crimped it really tight, and I have this heat shrink tube that you put on the wire. It's really loose, and then once you've crimped it, you slide it all the way up. But if you could take a look at it, it literally, you won't be able to get water in this. And not only that, it keeps that connector in place in case it did come loose or something like that, but it ain't ever going to come loose. So this is as good as it gets here with no soldering or anything. So I would recommend going into your Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards and pick up one of these cases here. It comes with all kinds of connectors that you'll be needing whenever you start doing electrical work. As I said before, this is the voltage supply or cable that's already in my vehicle that feeds out through one of the lamps. I wanted to reuse this, so and off of it comes your ground and power signal. This is how I'm splicing the ground wire. I'll have to do the same thing with the main wire, but this is that connector that I said can connect one wire and then splice in this wire into it. If you look real closely, I've already crimped it, and inside it's crimping down on that wire, cutting through the external sheathing and then making a connection in there. So this thing is pretty tight. And then what you end up doing is you close this and it'll snap and cover up that little metal thing, but I won't do that now. What I want to do is I want to test for continuity to make sure that this little metal crimper is actually making contact with both sets of wire, so that way that ground wire goes from here all the way out through here and even on this ground wire. So I do that before I actually try to put it in the vehicle. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick 101 of wiring and doing your own electrical work. You could do this for stereo equipment or other electronic devices, but this is for the tail lights for my license plate on the car. These are the harnesses, and what I need to do is I need to be able to connect a wire from here to here, and then another wire from here to there. And in actuality, this is bidirectional. It doesn't matter because there's no active elements in here. All it is going to be getting this, and imagine this is on this inside part, that bulb. So even if you wired it, flipped them, you could just flip this light over, and so it's kind of either way. You can't really paint yourself into the corner here. So basically my toolbox, I've got a lot of miscellaneous electrical things. So if you look up here, I've got a lot of connectors. It enables you to connect onto certain connectors. So for instance, I've got this right here. This is taillight assembly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these right here. What this does is this will snap in. It'll snap in right on there. So if I push down in there, and you'd push it down in there all the way, and it won't come out. I mean, that thing is almost impossible to pull out once it's in. And then what this thing does is if we were to look at one of these real closely, on the inside, this is where you would feed your wire into, and then you would end up crimping or crushing this blue part, and it'll pinch into that wire, and it'll prevent that wire from coming out. So I've already done one side of this, and I'll show you what I've got. Basically, it's this right here. So I cut my length of my wire, I measured how much I would need, and then I gave myself an extra 6 inches. So here's at the end of it, you can see it. And this black tube that you see me holding, it ends right there. These are like heat tubes. If you get a little match and you run it up and down with the flame, it doesn't have to be too hot. Typically, I use my soldering iron when it's hot. I just run it up and down this black tube, and what it'll do is it'll shrink, and it'll do a watertight seal around there. So that way, if loose wires or anything or water gets in there, you're not going to be shorting things or corroding things out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do up... I normally like to do live wire red and ground wire black. I'm going to be crimping this. I've got my splicer. This, depending on the gauge, you would put the end of the wire in each one of these, and you'd open it up, and then crush it down on it, and then you pull on it at an angle, slight angle, and it will strip the ends of the wire, so that way you can then take that raw wire, feed it in at the end of this thing, and then you can crush that. And you typically crush it by using the ends of this same crimper. You can see it's arced at a little thing, so when it comes down, it'll crush this blue part right here where your wire was fed into, and it will permanently keep it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and start on this. I won't videotape most of it because most of it requires 2 hands. What I did find was I found the old license plate. Look how wide that is. This is a European license plate. But this is actually a pretty cool license plate because it's an LED one. And what the previous owner did was, this is, remember that little adapter that was hanging out on the car? Well, this is it right here. If you plugged it in there, this whole thing would light up a big LED strip around their license plate. So what I did was I snipped this thing off, and I'm going to use this because I want to plug this into the wiring that's already there, and then take your ground and your live wire. What I'm going to do is I'm going to splice it into the live and the ground wire on this thing, and then feed it into this one right here, and then that's the easiest way without doing too much work. I will have to splice this wire, these two wires, into a set of other two wires. So what I've got here is a 2-to-1 splicer. You can see there's, on the right side, there's that hole there. That's your one signal, or one wire. It goes all the way through. And then on this side right here, where my fingers is, there's a little place where you could put your other wire. So you would literally have two wires coming in through here on the top side, and the wire on the right would continue to go through. And then what you do is you would crush this metal thing right here, and it will go all the way through and make contact with both wires, and it'll literally cause these two wires to touch each other, and it also touch the wire leaving it. So it effectively makes a 2-to-1 conversion on two wires going down to one wire. Then once you crush it down, this little the flange over here, you flip it over and it will actually lock it in to place, so that way this metal piece isn't exposed. When I get it all done with it, I'll show you, but it's easier said than done. The other thing is, get yourself a good voltmeter. I've got so many of these. This is my how do you say, weakest one. Put it on 9 volts, and then just put your probe tips onto what you're trying to measure in terms of voltages. The way I normally figure out which voltage reading to put it on is, well, I know it's 9 volt, but if you ever forget, just put it on any of the voltage meters, then place it on your car battery. And it doesn't matter which way you put these probe points, these two probes. The voltage will either read negative 13 or 14 volts, or positive 14 if you put it on your car battery. So you don't have to be worried about that. These things can handle flipping the polarities on them, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do the work, and then when I'm done, I'll show you what I've got. The one thing that I will have to do is I'm going to have to fish. I'm gonna have to fish this, the wires that connect this unit to this unit. I'll detach it from this one right here, and then I'll have to fish the wires over. And then when the wires are through, I can then connect them up to these, and then I can screw everything into place. So I'll get to work here. So I'm in the middle of cleaning out the rear license plate lights. And while that's all going on, I ended up buttoning up the cable harness, or cables, electrical lines going to each of the taillights. I ended up buying this, it's called Easy Loom split line sleeving. Costs about 30 bucks or so, but what it is it'll protect your lines and all that stuff from heat and that kind of stuff, extend the life of the cables, that kind of stuff. So what it is you get a whole bunch of this. Let me clear out most of this, and I'll show you what I'm doing here. It's one big length of, it's like a fiber, but you can tell it's more than just a fiber. It's a protective sheathing. And this is my cable. It goes from there to the other end. But what I'm doing is this tubing, actually the cable just slides in just like as I'm doing it like right now, and this sheathing is built so that way it curls all the way around your cabling. You don't even really need to tape it down, but I am. It's probably better to use twist ties, like right in here, even though they do give you a little bit of tape to tape down these edges. I think twist ties would, not twist ties, but your plastic tie, I forget what they call them, tie straps will work better. You just cinch them down and snip the excess off. So this is what I'm going to be feeding, snaking or fishing through from one end to the other. I'll be doing that right now, but just to let you know, this is what I've got set up. It should be really good. I wouldn't be worried about the heat or anything like that. You could put reflective tape on it of some type, like muffler tape and that kind of stuff, but I think this is plenty. I think it's rated up to, let me see if it says on there, it was, I read on the box or something like that, it was rated to be really high. Yeah, there it is, 375 Fahrenheit, so it's good enough. It's called Easy Loom by actual local. I bought this at O'Reilly's, but for 35 bucks. It's actually 33 bucks. Big whoop, but it gives another level of security. You don't want these wires to be fraying out, melting, or having bad contacts and all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, it could throw electrical gremlins all over your vehicle. Why even have that mental breakdown trying to diagnose where a loose ground wire is in your car? Anyhow, I've got my test harness on the counter of my kitchen, and I've installed the LED bulbs that I'm going to be using. And you can see if I put my finger on the casing, it's literally ambient temperature. It's not, I wouldn't even say it's warm. And these are brighter than heck. In fact, I'm surprised I won't be getting a ticket for having extremely bright license plate lights. So, but they'll be shining downwards and onto the license plate, so that should pose no problem. Yeah, the previous bulbs that I used that were the OEM bulbs, I think it were 5 watts. These are 1.7 watts. So the current draw on them is going to be extremely low. So that'll prevent overheating. It'll prevent the wires from drying out, cracking, and then eventually snapping, and basically like all electronics end up doing. And it's right behind the muffler of the engine, so there's gonna be a lot of heat in there, so you want this stuff to be pretty rock solid. I'm going to be installing it into the vehicle in the next video, and we'll see how it goes. One last thing I forgot to mention, I thought these housing units were bi-directional, but they're actually not. In fact, let me show you, take off these lights and show you on the back side. You can see that right side where it's let me see if I get my finger there, right there. It's glowing. It has a round plastic piece. That is actually the positive side of these housing units. So if I was to look on this one, you can see it right there. So just remember, when you attach your positive and negative signals to your harness or to that housing, that there is a positive voltage connector, and then the ground wire on the other one. Should be evident when you look at it, but initially I didn't notice that, and that is actually what's caused some of my issues. So okay, you can see that I've already fished it through. You got this heat shield cable surround in here. Got my tie downs. I would have rather have used black tie downs, but it's the only thing I had. And you can see I fished it over onto this side. Wires are all in there, nice and snug. All I did was take an old clothesline. I don't know if they even make metal clotheslines anymore because they're kind of cheap. But you can see what I did was I just taped off the two ends of the cable and made a convenient little loop there. And then I just took this hook, bent it around, put it on there, fed the clothes hanger through the right side over through here, and then pulled it through. It's very easy, so that way I didn't have to remove this grill and tried to get in on it on the other side. So what I'm going to do is proceed to finish cleaning up underneath there. It's just all dusty and grime hopefully some of it can come off. I know there's some tape up there and that. Once again, I'll use this glue gun, and then if that doesn't work, I'll sue the hell out of them. Or try to. Well, I've got the lights on, etc. But I think we don't have success. In fact, what I'm finding out is this left light, I don't know if it's dull or what, but it just has one band going through it, not all of them. Maybe it's what lights I've turned on inside, but if you look underneath here, I do not see any lights on. So I'm gonna have to check the wiring, or maybe the bulbs are burnt out. No clue. What a pisser. Well, I cleaned up everything. It looks pretty decent. As good as can be. There are some parts like right in here and right in here where I think the plastic part are really rubbed down or infused into the paint, the top part of it. I won't be going into sanding or any of that kind of stuff to make these nice and perfect, at least not yet, because when I bring in the vehicle to get it decontaminated and to get it ceramic coated and that, I will talk to the people that do that and see what they would recommend. You can see all these screw holes in here. I think these ones here are for the US license plate, and then when it went to Europe, since they have the really long plates, I think that license plate required 4 of them. One there, one here, and then one over here. That's a bummer. But what I'll do is I'll just get some plugs and put them in there, and then maybe paint them so that way it's fly yellow. The other thing I wanted to make a note of is right in here, I'm about to push this housing up, and if you can see, these are the clips that I have, or the springs as the website calls it. They're just horseshoe, and they fit right into the body panel. So when the screw goes in, it has something to grab. If you look at the contour of this, there's a lot of contours on one side and extremely flat on the other. What you want to do is you want the flat side to be on the part that's showing, so that way when this housing unit gets pushed up into that opening, it has a real flat area to take a hold of. One thing to note is, hopefully you can see this, this clip is really loose. It's got to be centered exactly where the screw hole is. See how loose it is? I could just move it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this clip out, and just get a pair of pliers, and maybe my hand can do it. What you want to do is you want to squeeze it down, so that way these two slats aren't parallel. That way when you slide it on, it has a really good bite into the side panel, and it won't shift on you when you start pushing in the housing unit where these two screw holes are. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm not going to do it on camera because it requires 2 hands and a lot of swear words. So I'll go on and do that. Well, there you go. It's all in. Everything looks perfect. The seals are good, so the black rubber is really tight on both of them, so it looks like success well done, unless the lights don't turn on when I flip them on. I'll do that. I'll shut off the garage lights and get the car with the lights on and see how it works. I did notice these 2 screws in here. I'm going to take them out because I thought that was for the US license plate, but you can see this nice how do you say, license plate holder I got from a vehicle I purchased from Dallas Lamborghini dealership, and this is metal. It's really high quality, not a scratch on it, and I think it looks really classy. So what I was going to do is put it up right in here, but if you notice them 2 screws, they don't line up to this holder, but those 2 ones do. So that one and that one right there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take out them 2 screws, see about getting plugs for all them other miscellaneous holes, and my license plate should be arriving because I got it titled, registered I don't know, I'm guessing around 4 weeks ago. So any day I should be getting those, and Then I'll be moving on to the wheels and getting those all done in the 3-piece OZs. I'm doing some, I think I'm getting gold bolts instead of the silver bolts. I think I make it a little more classier or pimpish. Oh God. Anyhow, there's another story to that, but I won't get into that. Anyhow. In the wheel well of the passenger side, underneath the dash, there's a cover plate. You can see right here, I just set it down here. It's got 3 little press screws that easily snap out, and you can then access the fuse box. This fuse box primarily controls a lot of the lights and accessories and that kind of stuff. So according to the schematics, F1 and F2 control or have the fuses, 5-amp fuses for the license plate lights, along with other rear lights and that kind of stuff. But it's going to be up in the upper left, up there. There should be upper left corner, the first and second fuse in there. Yeah, so I'm going to plug them out, pop them out, and throw them on tester and see if they're good. Okay, so I pulled out the F1 and F2 fuses out of the fuse panel box that's in the passenger well of the car, and we're supposed to have I believe they're 5-amp fuses up in the front. So let me see if I could find them. Well, anyhow, what I ended up doing is I went to the store, bought the ATOs. These are the automotive large fuses. Don't buy the minis. These are a lot wider, and they come with an assortment of fuses, and they're all the types you can see right in there. They come with 5, 10, 20, 30 amps, even 3, 7.5, 15, and 25 amp fuses. So this is what we will be needing. But the 2 fuses I pulled out were supposed to be 5-amp fuses, and you can see one of them is actually a, let's see if we could get that on there. Yep, a 15-amp fuse. So this one should not have been in the F1 position. And then this is another one that was in the F2. Actually, I think this was the one that in the F1 and that's F2, but you can see this is just melted. I could have done that because the polarity of the tail lights or the license plate lights that I put in, that was that whiff of smoke that I detected. Maybe it popped out this fuse. Let's hope that's what the issue is, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in 2 5-amp volts and see if I get the voltage coming out through the license plate lights. So this one is just roached. But if you look at it, this is a 20-amp fuse. This should actually be a 5-amp fuse, and so should that one. The top 2, if you look at the fuse box, the upper left fuse, and then the second to the upper left fuse, that's F1, F2. You can see in the diagram on the previous portion of the video I just threw up. So this is definitely roach. I'm going to replace both of these and see, and then measure the voltage coming out, and hopefully that fixes my issues. One thing that you can do is, if you're trying to figure out if a fuse is bad or not, you can get a voltmeter like this, and then what you want to do is you want to put it on the ohmage, this thing that looks like an upside down horseshoe. Put it on the lowest reading where it says 200 ohms. So I'll power it up, and right now you see it's at 1.0, and what that means it's an open, meaning there is no electrical connection between the probe tips that I have here. So what I can do is, if I take a good fuse and I put, and it doesn't matter which side you put these probe tips on. Let me see if I could do this with one hand. Okay, I'm almost there. Hang on one second. So right now they're touching. You should see almost zero. Hang on. I'm trying to do like a chopstick thing on here. Okay, now the probe tips are on. That's going to go down to below 1. It should, if I could keep the probe tips on. And there you go. So that means this fuse is good. So I could reuse it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it in my box of fuses that I bought once I open it up. This is the bad one. So, and normally this is so there must have been a massive voltage that went through there, or current, because this literally just melted. You normally don't see these fuses bomb like that. It's just a little piece of circuitry, metal. If you look up in there, there's that little metal thing that'll normally break in half. And that's kind of hard to see under normal circumstances, but if you hold it up to the light, you'll see a bad fuse will have that part snapped or blown open. And so that's what I was saying. If you wanted to test whether or not a fuse is working, just put these probe tips on and see what kind of reading you got. This one is so blown open that we won't get anything on this. So right now it's touching. This thing ain't even moving. It's a full open, meaning no power is being delivered to that license plate light, and there's other things that operate off of this fuse. So that circuit back there, there may be other things that aren't working. So I'm gonna pop these new 5 amp fuses in, and we'll see what goes on. The reason why I'm starting to speculate why these were both bumped up, maybe the person that did the work didn't have 5 amp fuses and figured, oh, we'll just put overrated fuses on that. It's not really what you should be doing, because otherwise you could put in 30 amp fuses, but what all that's going to do is allow more current to go through that circuit, and you'll blow out everything. So you want to stick to the amps that the service manual says they should be at, because in that way it will protect all the circuitry and devices, bulbs, etc. on that circuit that you have. And so I think perhaps the larger amperages would put on because they were readily on hand in the garage, but more importantly, maybe because the European license plate was put on. I should really do a search for this kind of license plate, and because it's an LED one. In fact, that's the name right there, LED designed Eurolux, and it glows. This is a pretty cool license plate because you pop it in and it's all LED and it really shines really nicely. So, and I think maybe it took a little more current draw on there, and so basically the person that did the work on it threw oversized or overrated fuses on it. So, okay, back into the garage. Hey kids, I just found out something pretty cool. In this box of fuses that I have, they have this thing right here. Normally they're fuse extractors, so you can pop this into the fuse and pinch down and pull the fuse out. I normally use needle nose pliers or whatever I have, but this is cool if you got it around. More importantly, check this thing out. I never even recognized this. On the other side, there's these 3 little probe tips, and there's a little LED. So guess what? You can actually use it as a tester. So check out this. So right here, if I touch it, you can see that little light turn on. It means it's a good fuse. Now check it out. If I touch these 2 probes over here, it doesn't turn on. So cool. They put in a little dinky battery in this thing, and then you can actually test out fuses. So this is cool. I can put it in my toolbox or throw it back into this device here whenever I'm doing fuse work. I don't need a voltmeter. Cool. Hey. Okay, everything seems to work. We got the tail lights on. They're really bright. But more importantly, these are the lamps. I'm going to be, you can see that both of them are on there. I could actually touch them and they're nice and cold, not even hot. So I think that's fixed. One thing that I noticed is now that those amps or the fuses have been put proper, I got to check the other amps, because I noticed that when I put the turn signal lights on, I'm not getting anything. But what's interesting is when I inspected the vehicle, I did, my brother was out there with me, and we did electrical thing, went through all the paces and everything, and the turn signals were working. So I wonder if it had something to do with the license plate lights and zapping those out. I'm going to have to see about whether or not the bulbs, if that blinking is activated in the bulbs or if it's another fuse that I have to look at. Anyhow, so we're making progress. I'm going to zip up these license plate lights and we'll see how it goes. Hip hip hooray, we have success. And the lights are on, everything's in nice and snug. And I'll go ahead and activate the blinkers. And there you can see that one's on, and then this other one also works. Just wanted to verify. So we learned a lot this this go around. Got into the fuse section, where the panel is, how to access it, saw the schematics, looked at the amperages and how to test for the fuses, that kind of stuff. Also, that I believe if it's like the older ones, like the Kuntaks, that these license plate lights, all they do is they ground into that right housing. If you were to feed that or find that wire going all the way back, and then the voltage has to come off the same, either the F1 fuse or the F2 fuse, even though it says each one goes to separate ones. I highly doubt that. Anyhow, until I see a circuit that says otherwise, I'm sticking with this. It seems to be good. Hope you learned something. I sure did. And like yourself.